Blades fans, subscribe to Blades Ramble. Up the Blades.
What is happening, Blades? And welcome back to the Blades Ramble. And this is the first time we're trying this, actually, because we are live to Ramblers only. So thank you to everybody that's joining me right now. What we plan on doing is doing our next phase of our transfer videos that we haven't caught up in for such a long time. I'm a little bit flustered. Andy the Blades just this minute left, and I didn't want to be late, so I've sort of run in and got everything together. So I was just grabbing my microphone as as the music was stopping, but we wouldn't have it any other way, would we? So yeah, we're here to discuss midfielders now. We've moved on to midfielders. So we've done the goalkeepers, we've done the defenders, and we will go back and review everything when we finish doing the whole lot. But what I talked about doing the other day was doing things slightly shorter. So we're bundling up into smaller packages. And what we're going to do, this will go out live to Ramblers, as I've said. And then about 24 hours later, we will release them into the wild. So if you are watching this on Tuesday evening, where have you been? Where have you been? You could have been watching it live with the Ramblers. And if you want to do that, then all the links are in the description below if you want to support the channel via that medium, because we'll be churning some more content out as well as we go. Because as part of us chopping it up, I've been previously doing in one video midfielders, freebies, realistics, and ideal signings, and doing a top 5 for each. Well, this one is just focusing on potential freebies, and it's not been that easy, you know, because, well, it's my own fault, because there's been other things to talk about. So I've chosen to talk about what I felt was relevant rather than these videos that you can pick and choose when you do them. But because I've put it off, there's been some players, Alex Mowat, for example, were on my original list, and he's now signed a new 2-year deal at West Brom. So he's no longer under consideration because he's not a free agent anymore. So these, and I don't include loans on these videos. These are just for permanent signings or loan to buys when I try and angle somebody in. So before we get started, as always, I want to thank our sponsors, Action Coach Sheffield and VMB Auto Centres. Thank you to them for their support. And now we're going to get started. And the first one I'm going to throw up is timely, because it's a recent link that's been chucked in either today or yesterday, and it's Matt Richie. Matt Richie from Newcastle has just been released. He's 34 years old. He's got 500, as you can see on the screen. It says there 562 career appearances. He scored 101 goals in that time and 96 assists. That's 197 goal involvements. Absolutely unreal record, that. And it's gone through the levels, but the majority has been played at the top end of the leagues, Championship and Premier League. Traditionally, Matt Richie is a winger, but he's a very neat and tidy player, comfortable on the ball, can play inside. I picture him as we could play him as a wide forward, or we could drift him inside a little bit as players get older and lose their pace a little bit. I think he'd be okay either as a 10, which we like playing with a 10, or I certainly like formations with a 10, or even a little bit further back to look after the ball a little bit. He did have a bad injury in 2019 and missed half a season with an ankle injury. But he's only missed, I think he's got a bit of a reputation of missing games and being injury prone, but he's only missed 16 games in total in the last 4 years. So Matt Richie is on my list as my 5th choice in terms of free transfer midfielders that we could potentially pick up. So let me know what you think in the comments as to whether you agree with that or not. And now we'll move on to the fourth pick, which is Chris Willock. Chris Willock at QPR, a Ramble favourite, it has to be said. 293 career games, 154 of those in the Championship. He's never actually played in the Premier League. He came through the Arsenal Academy, but he's never actually played in the Premier League. He is a former England under-20 international, playing 9 times, scoring 1 goal. There's a couple of bits about Willock, though, and I have to question his attitude a little bit. When QPR were faltering before the new manager came in, there were questions around his attitude, and we certainly don't need anything like that at the minute. The things we need to avoid are injury-prone players and bad eggs. Now, it's never good to have any of those in your squad at any one time, but being at the bare bones that we are currently, and the pivotal situation in needing durable, reliable leaders, it doesn't quite fit that mold, which is one of the main reasons he's only number 4, because I think as a player, he's quality, and I think he would potentially fit in really well with our team and our system. But you also have to reflect and think midfield is probably our strongest position overall. So we can maybe look to bypass the odd midfield player here in this situation. So the other thing with Chris Willock is, and this is actually a thing, and I don't mean to be sort of stereotypical, but some London players only like playing in and around the London area. We've seen it before with players. We're currently linked to a Crystal Palace player, and that may play a part in geography, may play a part in whether we get him or not. But in terms of Chris Willock, recent rumours are that he doesn't particularly fancy moving out of the London area, which is a shame, because I think there's a player in there where we know there is, certainly at Championship level. I like him, but if we have to miss out on him, then I don't think we've massively missed the trick there, to be fair. Number 3, and I've had to do a little bit of research on this, but it was worth doing because Steven Alzate has been a long-time Brighton player, and we all know, we've all got a very strong opinion, or the vast majority of us will have a strong opinion of Brighton and their recruitment strategy. He's a centre midfielder, and he's just been released on a free transfer, a Colombian international, making 7 appearances for his country. He's made 72 appearances overall for Brighton. He's spent the last few months on loan at Standard Liège. In fact, the last season on loan at Standard Liège. He scored 44 goals in his career. No, he hasn't. That's wrong. So ignore that bit. But he's there's interest from Rangers. There's interest from Rangers in him, which tells you the sort of level that he plays at. We're often in a similar ballpark for them sort of players. As we're a high-level Championship, very low-level Premier League team, us and Rangers seem to be involved in similar player chases. So, yeah, he's one to have a look at. Neat and tidy on the balls, as we've said previously about Matt Richie, but I don't know too much more about him than that, just the basic research that I've done. The next one that I'm going to mention, my second recommendation that we sign, as in number 2 on my list, it's a name we'll all now be familiar with. Alan Browne at Preston, who is no longer at Preston, to be fair. 29 years old, so an older head, not too old to be past the level that we need him to be. But as you can see just by the picture, he's Preston's captain. He's played 414 games in his career, and 346 of them were in the Championship. He scored 46 goals and got 26 assists, so that's 72 goal involvements. We need leaders. We need leaders, and Alan Browne fits the bill for what we're after. I've said before, I think we're quite strong already in midfield. I don't think we need to prioritise signings in that area. But Alan Browne, if you talk to any Preston fans, and I've done a little bit of research on Alan Browne, I know, believe it or not, but I do know a bit about him anyway. He's a solid 7 out of 10 every week, and that might not be, blow your socks off, but he can do a little bit of everything. If we need him to be a defensive midfielder, he can be. If we need him to be a goal-scoring midfielder a little bit further up, he can potentially be that. It'll be interesting to see what he's like in a stronger team than Preston, and that's no offence to Preston, but we are well, maybe not at the moment, but we're a bigger club. We're going to be hopefully putting him alongside Gus Hamer, Ollie Arblaster. If we were to sign him, it'd be interesting to see how he flourishes in that environment. So Alan Browne will be a really, really solid pickup. And obviously there's been heavy links to us signing him anyway. So I'd be all for that signing, in all honesty. And the number one pick, and I spoke to my dad about this, actually. I've just given him my list, and he gave me a little bit of feedback, and he said, and rightly said, which has sort of thrown me on the list out for the rest of my midfielders. He was like, I get it, but it doesn't fit with what we need, this number one. And he's right. He's right. So there's a little bit of heart ruling head in terms of quality of player outweighing what Sheffield United actually needs. So I'm willing to take a little bit of kickback on this one. But my number one choice is Stuart Armstrong. 32 years old, 508 career appearances, 149 goal involvements. I really like him as a player. He's played 149 times in the Premier League as well. Capped 51 times for Scotland with 5 goals. Okay injury history. He missed 9 games last year, 8 games the year before. It's not the best. He's an attacking midfielder. And what my dad was saying basically is, and he's right, because I've already agreed with him on this on previous rambles, but we want Gus Hamer further up the field because I think that's where he's most dangerous. So what you need alongside Ollie, our blaster, who can do a little bit of everything, to be honest, is somebody who can win the ball and give it easy. What Vinny Souza was brought in to do, essentially. So a Stuart Armstrong further up potentially forces Gus a little bit further back. I get it. And there's a glaring... so again, let me know what you think. He's an older head. Again, he's Stuart Armstrong. I think it's a good experienced figure to bring into the dressing room. Been there, done it. But there's a glaring omission from the free transfer pool that a lot of people have already mentioned to me. And that is Callum O'Hare. Callum O'Hare is not in this list because he may well be involved in a different list that we've got coming up. So watch this space for the Callum O'Hare discussion. I'm going to quickly jump into your comments now, and I know it's only Ramblers that are in here, so we often get the chat out in the WhatsApp group, don't we? But I'm happy to go through some comments here, and then we'll wrap it up because, as I say, we are doing quicker turnaround videos, and I thank everybody for joining us. How do, Jim, says Scott. Realistic Browne, yep. Would love O'Hare, there we go. Lone Chowdhury, Brooks. Do we know if the Miller deal's on? Seen Richie today, which from an experience point of view, I don't think he's bad on a 1-year contract. Up the Blades, up the Ramble. Top man, Scott. So some of the names you've mentioned there will likely come up on my next list, whether that's realistic, because the next video, the next Ramble will be realistic midfield targets, doing his top 5 for those. And then the one after that will be ideal signings for Sheffield United. So, yeah, keep it Ramble, as I know you will. I also like Twine, Scott Twine at Burnley, but can't see Burnley letting him go to us on the cheap as well. I agree. I think Bristol City were keen on him again. I think he had a spell there last season. Yes, he did, mate, and he played very well. He's not really kicked on since his move from MK Dons. He's been out on a couple of loan spells. I like him, though, as a player. I'm not so sure, like you've said, like that we'll get a deal done. A bit like the Ryan Giles thing. Luton were never going to sell to us, were they? So he's now gone to Hull, and it looks like Middlesbrough are buying him off Hull for an increased price. A bit of a flip for Hull, maybe. Mr. V, good evening, pal. I would love to see David Brooks back at the lane. He has the creativity in taking on defenders that we're lacking right now. Absolutely, mate. As would I. And again, you may see that name to come soon. Browne, O'Hare, David Brooks and Miller, and we're rocking and rolling, says Man Mountain. Tata Souza will be top 2 bound with that lot. Does anybody think that Vinny Souza has a chance at championship level if we don't sell him? Some are quite strong on Souza if he stays, being a big player for us next season. Just a talking point. Thoughts on the possibility of Souza staying? There you go, Bill. There you go. Not heard of any interest in him yet. Wouldn't be totally against him staying, but probably hard to mend that bridge with CW, I reckon. Maybe more difficult to build it with Jack Robinson. Hi, Jimmy. I agree, Mr. V. Let's get David Brooks back at beautiful downtown Bramall Lane. Thank you, Tim. Clarky, good evening, mate. Evening, Jimmy. Don't mind Richie at all. Need an older head. McCall, Cowan's speed. I think you need that experience. What great examples they are, them three, to use. Absolutely right. Spot on. Spot on. Would love to see Brooks back, but sadly can't see it, says Sean. David Brooks getting a lot of love in the chat. Dave Leary, O'Hare is a dream signing alongside Ollie and Hamer. Would also like look at Brooks. Maybe a cheeky loan with a buy option. Such a player in there. Absolutely there is, mate. Absolutely there is. Scott says, didn't realise Alzate was available on a free. That would be a right coup. I agree, Scott, from what I've seen, and it's very limited, I'll be honest. So I'm a bit Chris Wilder-ish in terms of if they're not from the British Isles nowadays, I'm not very up on them, but I've tried. Agree, Scott. Alzate is quality, says Ian. I'll take the Ramble Scouts' word for it. Browne would add some experience. Preston fans were disappointed when he left. I think it's a shrewd signing, that, David, to be honest. Alan Browne would be a really good signing for us. Agree with Paul. Man Mountain, Browne, O'Hare, Brooks and Miller, says Steve. And Hamer is a 10, and new striker will be well minted. It's a lot of money to shell out, though, isn't it? Well, I suppose, mind you, Browne and O'Hare, free. We know free transfers. There's no such thing as a free transfer, but no transfer fee. David Brooks on loan. Miller, modest fee. New striker is going to cost, innit? But you could get one on loan. It's doable, innit? Armstrong is a no for me, says David. Push back on Stuart Armstrong already. Not sure on that one, Jimmy Armstrong. Wow. No respect. When is Archer signing for us? Paul Young. Watch this space, mate. You watch this space. Paul Young. Never let it lie, dear son. Never let it lie. I don't know if Vinny's attitude is there, says Scott. Felt he was too good for us in the Prem. He must think we're totally beneath him now. We're back in the Championship. I know some of those interviews that apparently got lost in translation. Yeah, shockers, weren't they? Absolute shockers. Right, guys and girls, I know this is unusual for us these days, but I'm going to call it there. Just over 17 minutes. I'll tell you what, that is good, isn't it? That is good for us. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm going to try and be back again tomorrow, or I will be back again tomorrow. But if you're watching this on Tuesday, it'll probably be the day after because we'll be doing it in England Street. It's going to get confusing, this. But just tap the notification bell and you'll know where we are. But for Ramblers, you'll be kept up to date. And thank you for your continued support. But for now, come on, you red and white wizards. Up the blade!